Good morning, everyone. This is Father Nate, missionary priest in Italy, and thanks for joining us today, October 13th, on No Greater Delight, our podcast on Marian feasts and Marian meditations. Well, today, as always, we have many things to celebrate. First off, we'll take our lead from the Abbot Orsini, who tells us they celebrate Notre Dame de Clairvaux in Langres in France. Remember, Clairvaux, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux. In fact, we're told that Saint Bernard was the first abbot of this celebrated monastery, and it's where he died in the year 1153 at the age of 63. King Alphonsus I, the King of Portugal, in the year 1142, bound himself and his successors to pray every year as a vassal to Our Lady of Clairvaux, 50 gold maravedis, which I assume is a fair sum of money, but I don't know what a maravedis is. Then we'll jump over to Italy, where they celebrate Madonna della Schiavonea in Cogliano, Calabro, in Cosenza, Calabria, Italy. There we go. So it was the night of August 23rd, 1648. As mounted sentinel Antonio Ruffo watched the sea near St. Leonard's Church and the Tower of Cupo, and he saw not the Muslim raiders he was looking out for, but Our Lady seated over the sea. Arms outstretched, she calmed his fears, calling herself the Madonna of Schiavonea. Afterwards, the watchman commissioned a local artist named Della to paint her portrait, which was carried in procession to St. Leonard's Church on, yep, you guessed it, October 13th, 1648. Work on a new sanctuary began on that site on March 16th, 1649, dedicated to Our Lady of the Snows after Santa Maria Major, St. Mary Major in Rome. The shrine and the Schiavonea district celebrate their patronal feast on August 5th, with a nautical procession of the standing statue of the Virgin and Child, while the unusual Black Madonna painting remains in the diocesan sanctuary above the main altar. Likewise, we were told that they celebrate the Immaculada Concepcion in Vázquez, Casablanca, Chile. That's because the statue was crowned on this day in 1951, although the feast is obviously December 8th. Madonna del Ghisallo in Magrelio in Como, Lombardy, Italy. Pope Pius XII named her the patroness of bicyclists on this day in 1949. Again, that's the Madonna del Ghisallo. Our Lady of Lourdes in Daegu in Yeongnam in South Korea. This grotto was inaugurated today in 1918. They also celebrate Our Lady of Fatima in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is the church's feast day. You might say, well, why? It's not Our Lady of Fatima. No, but this is the anniversary of the miracle of the sun. If you recall, this took place on October 13th, 1917, right? If you recall, Suor Lucia, in the memories that she writes at the bishop's command, recalled that on July 13th, Our Lady said that she wanted Lucia and Francesco and Jacinta to come every 13th of the month, right? They were supposed to pray the rosary every day in honor of Our Lady of the Rosary, and to obtain peace for the world and an end to war, right? Lucia, who was very full of confidence, said, I wanted to ask you who you are and to make a miracle so that everyone can believe that you have appeared to us. And Our Lady, with maternal kindness, promised. She's like, keep coming here every month. In October, I will tell you who I am, what I want, and I will do a miracle so that everyone can see and can believe, right? Okay. So, what happened? They had an apparition of Our Lady. It looks like it's Our Lady, and then who appeared as Our Lady of Sorrows, and then Lady of Mount Carmel. I'm sorry, this is the Italian translation I'm trying to read. Anyways, they were ecstatic, looking at these heavenly images, and then the miracle began. Right. So Lucia announced with a shout, "Look at the sun." It's interesting what the father of Jacinta said. He said, we looked without difficulty at the sun, and it didn't blind us. It seemed that it would go out and then come spegnese, it would go out, literally be extinguished, and then it would be lighted up first in one way, then in another. It shot off rays of light from one side and then the other. And it was colored with all sorts of different colors. It covered with all different sorts of colors, the trees, the people, the land, and the air. But the thing that was most surprising was that the sun didn't hurt your eyes, right? Everything was quiet and calm. All of us had our eyes looking to heaven, when at a certain point the sun stopped and it began to dance and jump around. It stopped another time, and then another time it began to dance, until the point that it seemed to remove itself from heaven and come on top of us. That was a terrible moment. So again, this is recalling the miracle of the sun that took place today, October 13th, in 1917. And that is what we're celebrating today in the Marian world on October 13th. For today's reading from True Devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary by Saint Louis de Montfort, we continue with part 1 on devotion to Our Blessed Lady in general, and consider section 2, kind of discernment of true devotion, subsection 1, on false devotions to Our Lady. So yesterday we had a lengthy one about the presumptuous devotees, and today we'll consider a couple, just the last remaining ones. They're very brief, right? So 101, and point 101, we have the inconstant devotees. The inconstant devotees are those who are devout to Our Blessed Lady by intervals and whims. Sometimes they are fervent, and sometimes lukewarm. Sometimes they seem ready to do anything for her, and then a little while afterwards, they are not like the same people. They begin by taking up all the devotions to her, and enrolling themselves in the confraternities. And then they do not practice the rules with fidelity. They change like the moon. And Mary puts them under her feet with the crescent, because they are mutable, and unworthy to be reckoned among the servants of that faithful Virgin, whose clients have for their special graces fidelity and constancy. It were better for such persons to load themselves with fewer prayers and practices, and to fill them with faithfulness and love, in spite of the world, the devil, and the flesh. So again, these inconstant devotees are ones who, they kind of sign up, but it's like the seed that grows and gets choked by the plants, right? We get choked by the weeds. They start off well and devote, but then, things happen and it gets hard and they just don't follow through with it, right? And it's nice, this point that he makes is very beautiful, that, but Our Lady is the faithful Virgin. And it should be a mark of her servants, her slaves, that they are also faithful, right? At point 102, he says, we still have to mention the false devotees to Our Blessed Lady, who are the hypocritical devotees, who cloak their sins and sinful habits under her mantle, in order to pass in the eyes of men for what they are not. So this, I think, is probably somewhat rarer, but sometimes people, you can sometimes see this with people who, claim to be devoted to, I don't know, I think probably the best example I have are people who are devoted to every single apparition, meaning the ones that are not church approved. And sometimes you scratch your head and say okay, that's interesting, right? I remember there was one, I won't mention which one it is, but, they supposedly Our Lady told, the person was told by the bishop, they said, look, these are not real apparitions, because Mary's messages are frantic and she's panicking and things like that. And then apparently Mary told this visionary that she didn't have to listen because the bishop didn't follow canon law. And it's okay, that's kind of hypocritical in the sense that you're well, I prefer to listen to, this, my personal apparition, than the bishop of my diocese who, is charged with looking after the faithful here. So things like that. I mean, I guess you could be devoted and just pretend in my spirit of devotion, I'm going to commit a multitude of sins. It's not the way it works. Point 103. There are also the interested devotees, who have recourse to Our Lady only to gain some lawsuit, or to avoid some danger, to be cured of some illness, or for some other similar necessity, like to pass a test, right, to get good grades on an exam, without which they would forget her altogether. Both, however, of these last two classes are false devotees, and neither of them pass current before God and His Holy Mother. Right? So this is the people, they think that's for them, the Blessed Virgin Mary is aspirin, right, or Tylenol. You go to the cabinet and you get it when you need it, you use it, and then when the thing passes, you put it back in the cabinet, right? And so these are people who aren't really devoted to her. It's just, out of necessity, I need something, okay, so I will call on her intercession. And then to conclude this point, we go to 104. He says, let us then take great care not to be of the number of the critical devotees, who believe nothing and criticize everything. nor of the scrupulous devotees who are afraid of being too devout to Our Lady out of respect to our Lord, nor of the external devotees who make all their devotion consist in outward practices, nor of the presumptuous devotees who, under the pretext of their false devotion to the Blessed Virgin, wallow in their sins, nor of the inconstant devotees who by levity change their practices of devotion or throw them up altogether on the least temptation, nor of the hypocritical devotees who put themselves into confraternities and wear the cloak of the Blessed Virgin in order to pass for good people, nor finally of the interested devotees who only have recourse to Our Lady to be delivered from bodily evils or to obtain temporal goods. So these conclude the sort of false devotees that we don't want to be. Rather, as we see, in the next section, he'll talk about characteristics of true devotion to the Blessed Lady.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed our Marian podcast. As St. John Paul II teaches us, from Mary we learn to love Christ, her Son, the Son of God. Through her intercession, may we grow ever closer to Him. We encourage you to share this with a loved one or friend and help spread our devotion to Mary. Thank you, and God bless.